and welcome back to the Irish Hunting Podcast, the number one place for your hunting, fishing and country sports stories from around the world. Stick on the kettle, crack open a beer, pull up the feet, relax and enjoy. Hello and welcome back to episode 103, Rewilding Wicklow. This week we take to the Wicklow Hills with Ashley Glover. We hunt, we discover some of the work that the Irish Deer Commission, Re-wild Wicklow and some of the community groups are doing to conserve and preserve native woodland. We stalk in on a couple of deer and we chat about numbers and sections and what we as hunters can do to maintain the balance. Enjoy this one, folks. And finally, we welcome Ash Glover onto the Irish Hunting Podcast. This has been a long time in the making, my man. We're honoured to have you on. We've followed you for quite a while.
Cheers.
And thanks a million for having us up to this wonderful part of the country. And thank you very much for the fantastic brew we're having here at the minute.
Yeah, thanks to Quincy at Wicklow Wolf.
Absolutely, man. It's savage. We're both, Rob is on the lager and myself and yourself, are on the IPA. Beautiful.
Yeah, Elevation. It's probably their best seller.
When in Rome, as they say.
Exactly, yeah.
Come here, how are you?
Yeah, good, yeah.
Busy?
Yeah, busy doing a few, like I mainly shoot, as we said, on sections. In fact, I only shoot on section now. And so, we've just gone through a renewal process for a lot of our sections. So I usually, even though it's kind of obvious on some of the sites, I usually just do a kind of little walk around. I was away for 2 months up in Finland. And when I came back, I just did a day or two, just went to every site, walked the boundaries, checked new walls and fences, checked how many animals inside fences, went and spoke to some landowners that we didn't get to last year, and then looking at what funding is available for some of the infrastructure that we've got some grant funding recently for deer management projects through Re-wild Wicklow, which we can talk about today.
Brilliant.
So yeah, there's a good bit going on, and then I know it sent you a list of like a million different things you could focus on.
We could talk for hours.
We could talk, and I can talk about deer literally all day, as my wife will.
we guessed that from the first few minutes in the Jeep. It's your passion, as you say. Rewind a little bit there, Finland. How'd you get on over there?
Yeah, Finland was great. So apart from being a hunter, I'm a sailor. And last year, me and some of my mates sailed the boat to Sweden. And then last year, or this summer, we picked it up again. And then we sailed to Finland. So, yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
no wonder you're still happily married. She doesn't see it.
Yeah, she doesn't see me. Yeah,
that's like my wife. That's why we get on so well.
Yeah. So it was interesting. Went to, a lot, like obviously, the first thing you do in those places is you go and talk to the local hunter groups and stuff.
Yes.
So I think when we got off the flight in the first place, when we were picking up the boat at the boatyard, the first guy we met was a hunter from the north of Sweden, Östersund direction. Great. And he had one of these horse box trailers, and he was selling all game meat. So I was like, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So, and then obviously because of the language barrier.
Yes.
But there was an old lady buying something, and she was like, kept saying, you should get this and this. So we ended up with smoked elk hearts, hot smoked reindeer hearts, lots of elk or moose. I never remember which they call one the other.
Okay.
Yeah. We ate venison for the first week.
Fantastic.
And then one of the lads that I was over with then negotiated with a fishing trawler on the second week, so we ate fish for the second week.
Brilliant.
So
Brilliant.
Yeah, we ate very well.
It's like kings.
Yeah. Because on the downside, we caught no fish on the whole trip. Like we had a chance probably of catching fish in Kattegat, but the Baltic Sea is so polluted now that it was really sad.
Really?
Some of the places you're sailing through, it's just like sailing through kind of like mud, from all the runoff. There's just so many, like they've just got so much runoff there that it's just like super. Like I was nervous that it was going to block up the filters in the boat engine, because it was sucking in so much of this stuff.
Of course, we've our own trouble here in lakes and at the minute. So
this you've seen the pictures of Loch Ness. This is what parts of the Baltic look like.
Wow.
Like the sea is that polluted by runoff.
They're talking about like like some reports are talking about up to 20 years to kind of rewind the clock. And
there's no rewinding. The cod stock is in complete collapse. Like, well, the cod is gone. Gone. You know, and like, don't get me started on the sea trout and, you know, salmon and any spawning fish. They've got no hope. No hope. And it's challenging enough up there for fish anyway, with the brackish nature of the water as you get further up. But
I think it's at the dropping to 2%.
Yeah.
Sea trout coming back. Salmon coming back in.
Listen,
from the sea.
I'm very passionate about sea trout. If you ever want to come down and spend the day on the Bartry and talk to the lads in our conservation club about sea trout and all of the pressures, you know, from forestry, from, you know, recreational trail development, water abstraction, netting. You know, it's just like I don't know how a sea trout gets up a river in Ireland anymore. It's just.
I am right saying it's dropped from 30% maybe 2 decades ago down to 2% now.
I don't know. I know everything about deer data and numbers, but I've no idea. I haven't been following what the numbers are on, you know, salmon. You'll have to do a separate podcast with Luke Drake. Absolutely, he's my fishing buddy that knows everything about the numbers. I know I can talk today about deer data until it comes out. Anything that I don't know, I'll put you in touch with Dr. Alan Smith, one of my colleagues on the hunting conservation projects, that he has got a PhD in deer data stuff, so he's been working on, you know, how we're going to, you know, assess the kind of success of some of these projects we're doing, where we're trying to maybe restore a small native woodland, you know, fencing versus cages and tubes and culling and, you know, on section or off section, and with the support of the native or the adjoining landowner or without, because sometimes you're trying to work in isolation because you don't have the commitment from the adjacent landowner, because that is often the state.
And that can be isolated.
So it can be very difficult to know sometimes, like, are you making a difference? And it's, you know, as my buddy is a forester, Paddy Purser, and he'll say it's hard sometimes to explain in a native woodland because we're trying to show people something that's not there because of the deer damage. So my view is it's a bit like the duck test. If it, you know, quacks up duck, looks like a duck is stuck. So some of the sites that I'll show you today would be under a tremendous amount of deer pressure. Some of them, like this one, kind of middle ground, you know, this has been on section now for I think the second or third year. I wouldn't say we're on top of it. We're not, you know. You may not see at the beginning the deer were living here, and so they were here everywhere. They don't do that anymore because obviously they get the memo when they're getting shot and they'll move, but they're in all the adjacent lands where we can't shoot them. So when it comes to night time, then they'll come back in. So a lot of our sites, I think over the next year or two, a lot of our sections, they will move from being probably daytime sections to nighttime sections. Prefer not to be, you know, out in the middle of the night, and personally I don't shoot on night sections because like I'd never be at home. So it's but we obviously have loads of lads that you know, are well qualified for thermals and you know, shooting at night, and it's probably with sites it's good to have a mix. You know, you need somebody that's good, you know, like Adam on, you know, he can do a thermal drone survey, he can, you know, he knows what to expect from the data, and you know, he can do all the kind of maths, and you know, then you know, we try and you know, he's a deer hunter as well, so you know, he can support some of the sites, and then we have, you know, other lads that just have a, you know, extensive you know, they've been hunting for 20, 30 years. And
we're going to pause this for a second.
So we're have to jump back into the gym. So when you were away for those 8 weeks and you came back, did you see much damage? Was there any indicators?
Yeah, there's definitely indicators, but obviously it's different. You know, the animals are starting to move to different places now because of the rut and the way the herds are changing. That's happening. So there's like, and also you know, a lot of sites that we put under a lot of hunting pressure, they've moved to the adjacent lands. So we have to then have that conversation with the other landowner. I'm going to show you that when we move up the Glen Cree Valley today, where they were in site A. We shot that heavily. They then moved to site B across the river. Luckily, that landowner is very environmentally sound, and she signed off on the section immediately. So we started. Like, so otherwise we would have been just playing ping pong. But now they've moved on to an adjacent site which isn't on section, so we can't shoot there. So like, do you know, so our return is diminishing unless there is some sort of administration involved so that you can go and prompt signing off on the sections, because it can change. Like you know,
that.
as I was saying,
Yeah.
you know, we had this and we might bump into the Parks and Wildlife Ranger up at the next site. We had lads in lamping deer with dogs the other night on that site. Obviously, if you've got a load of young lads in lamping deer with dogs, that's illegal.
Yeah.
But it also drives the deer to places that
Yeah,
you know.
you guys do.
So it you know, we have to then kind of reassess that site. And that happened on the 1st of the month. We only found out about that today from an adjacent landowner. The landowner still doesn't know that happened. So then we put in the report as part of the, you know, section. We go, okay. And also, potentially the landowner thinks that's us.
Yeah.
You know, we had another situation last year where, you know, a hunter that, you know, used to be a legacy hunter on that site, they weren't on the section. They just showed up one day, shot a season hind, left it in the field again. The landowner would go, that was you guys. Luckily one of our guys found it and able to say that, you know, that was the situation. But, you know, the thing I like about Section 42 is, you know who's there. There's a paper trail.
Yeah.
There's the folio numbers and the map.
Yeah.
It's ideally signed off by the Parks and Wildlife Ranger actually going to the site, although we have so many in this area now. Understandably, they like just go, oh look, you know, and we can send them videos on the thermals. Look, I mean, like, but they know, right? Because they're passing through here. So if we can get the sign off is prompt. It's not so prompt in the Dublin Mountains for a section sign off, but it's very prompt in Wicklow. Very prompt, sometimes same day. So the setup for sections in Wicklow, I think, is pretty good now. You know, it used to be good, but now it is pretty good. And for a native woodland site that you're trying to manage, I think it's the only way to do it. I wouldn't go back to the old way of doing it where, you know, you're trying to just manage it in season and then, you know, you have to leave the site and it just refills from the neighbouring landowners and you're back to square one every time. And it's very disillusioning for... you know, and also you have to keep that like low level pressure all the time, because it's not just shooting deer. Some people think, like, particularly the landowners, they're like, shoot the deer. And we're like, yeah, it is shooting the deer because that physically removes them from that landscape. But by having hunting pressure in that native woodland scheme, you are basically sending the memo to the deer, do not be living here during the daytime, because otherwise they're there 24/7 and they're browsing all the time. You know, they're getting up in the day from their bedding and 6 times a day and they're walking out and they're, you know, stripping the tree. Yeah. So I think the best way to do it for these areas which have A, high deer density, and B, you're trying to meet an environmental objective like a native woodland scheme, a section is the only way to do it. Okay. You know, and while I prefer not to be needing sections, I can't see another way of doing it, in my experience.
Yes.
If you, and I had a site yesterday, I was down looking at a guy who wants to restore a bit of native woodland. He's done half and he wants to do the other half down in Rantrum. And he was like, Ash, you know, how do I approach this? And I went down, did a site assessment, you know, looked at the issues and, you know, there was actually one deer, unfortunately, hung up in the barbed wire fence and she'd been eaten alive by foxes. And, you know, he was a bit, you know, oh, we have a problem. And I'm like, honestly, relatively to the amount of sites, you've got about 30 deer. So we can handle that with one hunter in normal course of, you don't need a section. Yeah. If we applied for a section for every site that needs one, we would be demented. Like, we couldn't do it, and we'd be going from pillar to post. So we have to prioritise, and for me, I prioritised the Re-wild Wicklow native woodland schemes, the Woodland Trust and a few of the other native woodland conservation groups, for the reason is they're quite structured. You know, they're not, often they're not like today's site, they're run by like an environmental conservation trust rather than an individual, because individuals, like, they're like, then you're getting into, oh, I only want to shoot on a Tuesday at 6 o'clock or whatever. I don't know. No, look, once we take over the site, we then manage the site and we do the risk assessment. We stay there until it's, you know, done. We talk to the adjacent landowners, and I think that structure of a section is better. But I absolutely understand why some hunters don't want to shoot on section. Like, we get a lot of hunters, they're not, no, I don't want to shoot stags when they're in velvet. I don't want to shoot calves calves or hinds at all. I don't want to shoot hinds when they're pregnant, and I don't want to take the risk of orphaning a calf.
Yeah.
Now, with sections, and particularly where the sections are using thermals, your chances of orphaning a calf are very small. It's happened to me once, and all I did was went back the next day and culled the calf.
Yeah.
Like, they don't disappear, they stay. So, and that was an unusual situation as part of a kind of humane dispatch thing. I didn't see the calf. My bad. I should have stayed longer. But, so.
Everyone makes mistakes.
Yeah. I think.
Can I argue both sides of the coin? That?
Yeah.
So obviously myself and Anto have never been on a section.
Yeah.
Right, but I do see some downsides of a section. Like, are you able to manage the genetics of the herd? One, and then two, are you pushing them nocturnal? And then are people, because there is no formal training of shooting at night time with torches, which obviously increases the danger to both people and livestock.
Yeah.
Can you speak on?
So I can't really speak about the genetics of the herd. In my experience, particularly with shooting inside deer fences, the ones that get inside the deer fences tend to be the very small Seekers, or sometimes the really big hybrids, because they can jump them. And if the deer is inside the fence and it's a section, arguably you just have to shoot whatever's inside the fence, because the state, me and you, are paying the landowner to put up a deer fence, and then we're paying them the grants and premiums to maintain that deer fence. Like, arguably you shouldn't even need a section to shoot a deer inside the deer fence, because what is the deer fence? It's there to exclude the animals, and once they get in, I can tell you, they'll trash it, because it is there's no human disturbance in there. There's no one walking their dogs, and they will stay there until they've eaten it.
Well and truly populated. So look, as Rob said, there is, and I think there's a place for everyone. Like, that's the thing. If you don't want, as you said, to shoot pregnant females and so on, you don't have to. But we have to, I suppose, respect. There's probably people going to listen to this podcast in different areas of the country who don't have the particular set of circumstances that we're sitting in right now.
They wouldn't have the perspective that Ash has.
Correct.
And honestly, we can look at that, right? Because I think, where sections are in the country is very telling. Like, some counties don't apply for sections at all because they probably don't need them. If you don't need them, don't apply for them. And, I say it to landowners. I get lots of landowners going, we think we need a section. I've heard about that. What is it? And I'm like, why? How many deer have you got? Oh, we got like 15. I was like, don't need a section for 15 deer. So if you let's look. This is the 24. The Irish Deer Commission, we get the data every year, and now increasingly it's online. But we've got the data going back to as far as it goes. Yeah. So you can look down there, right? This is the split down by Carlow, and from Carlow to Wicklow, right? So in Carlow, there was one section 42 issued. One. Yeah. Like, probably to one guy.
And no big shot.
Didn't issued any deer, right? Calvin, none issued, no deer, right?
No problem.
Then you're starting to get into, maybe let's skip on to Cork, right? Now, Cork, understandably, there's a lot of deer in Cork, right? So 45 sections, and they shot 270 odd deer under
section.
Yeah.
Which is not a whole pile when you're considering. I would have thought that number would be a little bit larger.
I would have thought so too. And look at Galway there, right? For comparison, right? About the same, really. 49 sections, a few more, and they shot less.
Yeah.
Which actually, that's weird, because fallow are easier to shoot. 240. Now Kerry, 56 sections and
663.
Yeah, 663 shot. Kerry, my plan is to spend a bit of time shooting in Kerry this year. I know the newly appointed deer management coordinator down there. So, and I know some of the landowners, just to get a feel for, because everyone goes, oh, Wicklow is special. And I agree, it is. Just because of the Sika numbers in certain areas in Wicklow, the density is just very, very, very high, right? Because of the reasons we're talking about today. But then, I went up to the Boyne, for example. I know some landowners there. They have some of the areas where you arguably need a section for red deer.
Yeah.
In the Boyne Valley.
There you go.
Yeah. And I was down in Gorton, Scariff last year shooting on the Mate's Native Woodland Scheme, and a massive fallow problem. Like, they had as many fallow as some of these sites for...
Try not to cover the mic.
Oh yeah, sorry. So yeah, in Galway and East Clare, you know, there's a significant piece of work to be done for deer management in those areas. But outside Wicklow, like Wicklow is just ground zero. Like you know, so we can talk about the whole country. I don't have the experience of the whole country, but anytime I've gone and looked, it's not at the scale. There are hotspots, and obviously I go to the hotspots because
There's
what's the point of me going
yeah.
So if you look at other counties like Leitrim, nothing at all. Skipping through to Mayo. Mayo, like if you listen to the politicians in Mayo, they're like, oh, there's a deer in everyone's garden and all that, right? Look, 11 sections applied for. They shot 21 deer, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I know lads that do that in an evening. So it's like, that's not a deer problem. So if Mayo are saying, oh, we've got a problem, why at the same time are Mayo not applying for sections? Arguably.
Yeah, there's not a problem. The problem is, like, this is the thing. I think it's an Irish thing, Ash, because, you know, we had the same. We do a little small bit of shooting.
Yeah.
Down on one of the farms down in Kilkenny, and I just looked where Kilkenny there, like 5 sections and 13 deer shot. Now we've talked to a couple of people there. Oh geez, sure, we've had wicked trouble here with car crashes, wasn't it? And when we went down like that, small numbers,
yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And that can be managed, and I think it should be managed. By regular shooting in season.
Absolutely,
you have no need to be worrying about the other issues. Just do it under the normal system. Now. There may be some hotspots. Like there are in every county
of course,
that need management, and I think there'll be a framework in place
for that.
That, and generally those sites are not on private land, because if you have a problem on private land, you apply for a section. So skipping forward there, the second largest outside Wicklow is Tip. So Tip had 122 sections and shot over 1,000 deer on section, and then you're starting to get into big numbers, right? 1,000 deer on section. That is, you know, 10 per section. That's a fair amount, you know.
Second's only to Wicklow,
Second, yeah. Then there's, you know, obviously there's not many deer in places like Wexford. Actually, I gave a talk last year. I don't know if you've had him on the podcast. If not, you should. Porrick Breen from the NARGC.
I know Porrick,
very good. Him talking about ducks. So he is just done his HCAP, and he's starting. You know, and I've got him all genned up on being a
Porrick, in fairness, gave us. We got a guy, an American hunter. He's living in Ireland, you know. He's Irish, Clinton, and he got and Porrick helped us out with getting him his HCAP and stuff. Good guy, great guy.
He's great.
Great guy.
So where, you know, in South Wicklow and particularly over to the, you know, the more mountainous areas, I think of Carlow, Kilkenny now. There are areas where the deer population is starting to build, and you know, particularly near some of the Quilcher blocks and stuff. So there will need to be a bit of consideration of some of these counties. I think you're going to see counties where they didn't need sections at all, like 2 sections last year in Wexford. I think you are going to start to see some areas. We're going to go through it in a minute, but we get all the data from Transport Infrastructure Ireland on the road accident areas. So it's relative, but if you don't think about these areas, then like Dublin, for example, you know, no one thought about, like, you know, urban and peri-urban deer management in Dublin. Now Dublin is probably, arguably, you know, like, okay, there's only 20 sections in Dublin, but, you know, arguably that's like, just because of the land ownership there, they probably needed a lot more than 20. Like Dublin is actually like Wicklow at the moment.
A double-pronged question, right? Because, so first one is, your organisation, is it open to new members, number one?
Re-wild Wicklow or the Irish Deer Commission?
The Irish Deer Commission.
Yes, it is,
Okay.
Absolutely.
So that's the first thing, right? And then the second thing is then, so obviously, look, we're blessed here, we get to talk to you, but a lot of hunters don't have the access to, say, that we would have to different people, organisations, so on. We were talking about sections here. So is that the best way for like yourself? Do you help people talking through, like for instance,
not really,
talk through
not
sections and stuff?
No. See, sections don't. So let's talk about what a section is, right? First, so Section 42 is a derogation to the Wildlife Act. Normal hunting that you're doing all the time is Section 29, your regular license. Section 42 is a derogation to that, and it currently is about 36 weeks. It used to be 12, and it used to be for a specified number of animals. Now it's generally in Wicklow unlimited. Right? And it can be a daytime section or a nighttime section or a blended.
Okay.
Yeah, a hybrid. A lot of our sections, we have some guys shooting in the day and some at night.
Nice.
On sites that need a lot of management. A fair amount of, not a fair amount, probably half hunters, when I talk to them, they don't want to do sections.
Yeah.
A section is generally driven by either the forester, the ecologist, or the landowner. The landowner applies.
Yeah.
The hunter has an important role, though, because the hunter has a good feeling for the land. And if they're seeing the impact, they're seeing the numbers go up, and in the regular hunting season, they aren't able, even by getting in some other people, they're not able to keep a lid on it just because of the location, maybe. Then a section is worth
warranted.
No, it's worth applying for. The nice thing about a section is it's just a request for that, right?
And then
the parks and the ranger comes out, and this is the ideal thing. The ranger comes out and goes, actually, I know the wider area. I've looked at the ranger shoot as well. They know the area, and they can then give you a steer and go, actually, you probably don't need one here.
Yeah, we have an issue over here. You're seeing it better.
The issue in Wicklow, so to bring us to the Wicklow number, so in 2024, 608 sections were issued. So out of the 1,000 sections, 600 were here.
Nearly 3/4,
Yeah. And I can tell you, most of them were in a place that begins with Glen.
Yeah.
Glenmalure, Glendalough, Devil's Glen, Glencree, Glencullen. It's just because of the topography here, and they're generally all for. I can show you. We have a breakdown somewhere of what was shot under those sections, but it's always Sika in Wicklow. There are fallow herds, particularly where I live, but it's mainly Sika. Mainly Sika.
The numbers is 6,362 shot there.
Yeah. So that's the average of 10 per hunter
out of a total of 10,071. So again,
but this is slightly misleading, right? So that's an average 10, but sure, I would have shot 100 under section. So there's lads shooting maybe 300-400 under section. Now there wouldn't be that many people, because if you think about it, that's like a nearly a deer a day or more than a deer a day. So that's kind of your job then. I'd usually go out maybe 2-3 evenings a week, but I live in Deer Central, so I've got sections at the end of my road. So the quickest I've been, even just get in the Jeep, go out, drive up the road, go into the wood, shoot the deer, and I'm in the chiller within half an hour.
Deer hunter's dream. Huh?
Yeah.
Just on sections, Ash.
Yeah.
To go back to the sections, because like I said, we've never been on them.
Yeah.
But are they a letter submitted, or are they online?
Yeah, so let me show you. Let's go through that. So I think, honestly, a lot of people don't really understand how it works. So what I did was I bring along what is involved. And, I don't want to Wicklow is, just to reiterate, Wicklow is a lot of sections, 600 sections, 6,000 animals shot under section. It's not such an issue in other counties. There are certain areas in other counties that probably would be suitable for section. But that's up to Parks and Wildlife Rangers. And, my experience of the Rangers is they're always very good. They look at the site. People don't apply for sections if they don't need them. It's there was this thought, I think, in the back of people's mind is, if people just want to shoot later in the season, they would apply for a section. There might have been a few messers that did that, but I think in general hunters are fairly competent in Ireland, and they're fairly there's so much hunting in Ireland. We're kind of blessed with the 3 species, and we've got areas like Wicklow that is just there's deer everywhere. So I don't think there's going to be many people going, if you want to shoot on section, there's usually somebody that wants you to shoot on section. So the landowner puts in its details. They apply for, now all of our sections nearly would be renewals. So what's the species of the causing the damage? and where, if there was previous permits and the returns. So each section comes with a detailed return, which is submitted by the landowner. So the hunter has to provide that. And I know sections where there's 20 lads on the section, so they all have to put their cull in.
So that was my next question. Is it one person per section?
No, that doesn't work.
And then they're self-declared figures.
Anyone that tells me they've got a section with one hunter on it, I'm like, really? He's there every day? Like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You need, and again, my experience is because hunters have different approaches and, everyone's got their own skills, like I'm an old lad. I'm 56, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not suitable for fucking dragging deer out.
You don't look a day over 40.
You do fucking not.
So that's because I'm eating so much healthy food, So, but, it's good to have that mix. And also, if it's just old lads like me holding all that ground, then how are we going to mentor the new yards and put them on ground? So that's not going to work, right? So I like to have a mix on the thing with the new kids when they're coming on section. What we say to them is, listen, you have to go out with someone else for the first year just to get,
fair,
that's fair.
And they want to, like that guy you just met earlier, that tree surgeon guy. That's what he's looking at doing. Anyway, then previous permits. What else is in it? I just carry around some of these because
while you're going through that, is that online?
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, we have an older landowner.
Yeah.
And he's not au fait with technology.
No, you just print it out. Yeah, you print it out.
You can print it out in those
you print it out. Yeah. Now it's very fast return in Wicklow. In Dublin, maybe not so fast. And I've heard in other counties it can be slow. So they're trying to standardise that at the moment with the sections, and that'll probably be part of a process to go, like, do you need it? If you need it, no one's trying to not issue a section.
Yeah.
If it makes sense. And generally, most of the sections that we do are repeats now because it doesn't get fixed, right? And in fact, with deer fences, they tend to degrade over time. So, so then they put in the stalker details, the same issues. Your hunter license number under your section 29, the firearms details. You can put multiple. You can put as many as you want. We would usually have a list that we would have on the back of it. And we would also supply the landowner with an extra form which would have things like, the reg plates of the cars, and because particularly if people are shooting at night and stuff, you're pulling up and you're like, oh, who's that strange vehicle? I've not seen that. And somebody might have a work vehicle and a home vehicle. This is a new bit. When you're requesting control that uses lamp, handheld night vision, handheld thermal imager, rifle mounted imaging scope, rifle mounted night vision, or mechanically propelled vehicles. So for example, say you're culling from a vehicle like in the Phoenix Park, or you're culling from a quad bike up in the hills, or whatever. And the competency certs. This is a new change. I'm not sure how at the moment, because there isn't, as far as I know, a competency cert in Ireland of how to use a torch. So, and I'm not even sure if there's one to use a mechanically propelled vehicle apart from, like a driving license. So I'm not sure sometimes what they're asking or why or how they're going to use this stuff. But I do understand a reluctance, and we'll talk about comparative studies. I want to talk a bit about Australia. I just had a great meeting with the boss of deer management for Australia. She came over to visit us, and how they do it. Like, for example, they're not allowed to have moderators without having a special license.
Same like the Americans.
Yeah. And they, she was saying about, the restrictions of culling there. And I was like, I'm not sure how you'd manage with some of these. So my understanding, and again, I'm not a firearms licensing lawyer, but my understanding is if your thermal or your night vision is mounted on the firearm, that's a separate firearm. Correct. It's a separate license.
It's actually a restricted license.
Yeah. And you just apply for that. In Wicklow, I know loads of people that have those. It's not an issue. You apply. If you've got a good reason for it, you apply and you get it. Yeah. Same with a moderator. I actually think, you shouldn't be allowed to have a centre fire rifle without a moderator. You know, I'm shooting in among houses, in among livestock. I want to protect my own ear. Yeah. So I honestly don't think, you know, there should be an issue there. I do understand, you know, I don't shoot at night, so I just don't. Yeah. Because
comes with its own dangers as well.
It's not because of that. It's just I'm shooting too much as it is at the moment. Like I'm out all the time. So like if I started shooting at night, I'd never be like, you know, I'd never see the family. So, it, you know, there's absolutely a place for it. I think, you know, a lot of lads would use a combination of a thermal spotter and a lamp, which that brings its own kind of like, because there's still some grey areas there. I would use a handheld pulsar for all of my site audits, you know, to look at a site and do a count for a landowner and decide, like, you know, like yesterday, do you need a section or not? In this case, they probably didn't.
Most farmers, like you said, they wouldn't understand or know what's on their land. But if you go out at night time with thermal,
like shout out to my mate Shane, right? You know, Shane's. I know Shane lives in a deer hotspot, and he's a farmer mate of mine, and he's paranoid about TB. And no matter what you tell him, he'll think, you know, TB comes from deer and badgers, not from. I was like, you know, it's called bovine TB. But anyway, we'd be chatting, and he said, "I'll come up for lunch anyway and take a look over the site." And he goes, "Any deer that comes into my farm is shot. Like, you know, my neighbour's a hunter. If I see a deer in here, I just call him, and he just comes, and the deer is, like you said, the quickest is like 5 minutes. He just, like, the deer's on the lawn." And I'm like, grand. So you've none coming in at night then? And he goes, no. Anyway, so we walked the first fence line just outside his kitchen window, and like there was 3 or 4 holes in it with fur on the barbed wire, and like where they landed on the, you know, the tracks. And I'm like, Shane,
I'm sorry to tell you, man.
Well, it's one of the areas, I know the areas that are the hotspots because I'm also the administrator for my area for the Humane Dispatch Programme.
Yes.
So we get call outs at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's a deer hit, and I know his road gets a lot of call outs, so I knew it was going to be
deer there.
Yeah. So that's another thing we'd like to talk about
Human
today.
Dispatch, that's a brilliant...
About the Humane Dispatch. But have I covered sections? It's not for every hunter.
Yeah.
It's not for the hunter to apply, but I feel the hunter should be aware of how they work.
Exactly.
They should be educated on it. I was saying to Tommy, probably do because Tommy has a good guide of how to get through HCAP and how to. There needs to be a similar bit of paper to explain, because when you go online, it's just a form. It doesn't tell you.
Yeah, and even on that, Ash, as well, like there would be farmers, as Rob said, like there's aging farmers who probably don't know about this type. They
definitely don't.
And it's probably our duty as well as a hunter, if you're hunting around, to explain and maybe walk them through. Look, this is how you do this.
Exactly. And be honest about it, you know, with the farmer. Go, look, you know, there's, like, as you've just said, there's pros and cons of sections.
Yeah.
Ideally, we would not need sections, but we is where we is, right?
Yeah.
And in Wicklow, we need sections. I personally like them because they give structure. I know I'm not going to meet some muppet wandering around with his rifle in that site for those 36 weeks, right?
But like, for instance, me and Rob have shoot a small piece in Wicklow, but it's a small farm. We manage that quite well. Yeah, the 2 of us, you know. Yeah. And
I know though, at night time.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is though, but there's adjoining farms who probably don't know what Ash is saying here, with in terms of section opportunity and so on.
Yeah. Well, when the mic's off, you tell me where it is, and I'll tell you. There you go. Like honestly, I've been to so many now. I kind of can tell by looking on Google Earth. Yeah. It is that straightforward in Wicklow. You can tell by the topography. You can tell by how close to a large quilter block they are. How far from the national park are they? Yeah. There's certain factors. You could almost build an algorithm. I was saying this to Adam Smith. Like, you could build a bit of maths if you were smart enough to basically tell you. Yeah. Like, these are the factors that suggest there is going to be.
I'll give you some factors.
Yeah, go on.
You tell me.
Yeah, go on.
It's right next door to the national park.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Okay. Stop there.
Yeah.
Stop there.
Oh, Ash is just having a look out.
I just thought,
We're actually just talking.
Yeah. Now, you see that little field over there with just below the gate?
Yeah.
Or that the 3-bar horse fence there?
Yes.
I would say that will fill up in a minute.
Okay.
Or the little, you can't really see properly into it. You see the other fence, like there's all deer tracks I can see in the open there to the left.
So what we're doing at the moment, we're just spotting That's what we're supposed to do the whole time.
Yeah, we're just chatting.
Now.
No, I just thought I saw a bit of movement. And then the other, why I like this side is, and this is the same with any of the glens in Wicklow, the nice thing about having multiple sections in a glen is you can go to one side of the glen and see across into the other side. You're not traipsing because you don't have time. Like, do you know how many times you're getting out? So you want to be productive in the time you're getting out.
So this is where we differ, Ash.
So I can go there.
This is like not a job to you, but you're trying to get numbers down.
Yeah.
Where myself and Andrew are going out, not leisurely. Would you say leisurely?
We're recreational hunters by now,
Yeah, I don't like the term recreational hunter. You're either a hunter or you're not a hunter.
But compared to yourself in terms of numbers,
the stock, like all of that, where you seem to be efficient, no numbers down, because you have such a big problem here. I didn't realise the problem was that big.
Yeah, it's like it's just a large Sika density in a native woodland scheme that just the two are not compatible, right? So like you have a choice, either fence the whole of Wicklow, which we can't, like that's ridiculous, and as we've talked about, fences don't really work anyway. Like they work short term. Lifespan, like some of the worst problem areas we've got at the moment are shooting deers inside the fences.
And can you talk to us about fences? Like earlier you were saying there's a skill in it.
There is a huge skill. So that fence up on that hill there was put together by Noel, and Noel is just really good at making deer fences, right? And if you just get a regular fencing contractor, they have no idea, they don't understand deer. So like that fence will be breached first day. You know, now Noel did leave one inside that fence, but but he's just very good at it, and I've seen the work he's done, and I spend a lot of time walking around the boundary of deer fences, checking them and seeing where the deer are and shooting the deer inside the fences, and I know he's really good. So I think choose your contractor carefully. You know? It is a real skill, and you think it's just knocking in fence posts. No, it's not.
Look, we've been over in Hungary, managed their deer populations well as well, because they have to live efficiently beside, and it is a skill. But as you rightly said, it does have a lifespan. It does require maintenance. They'll still try their damnedest to get through it if they so want to.
I think, and there are places in Wicklow you don't need deer fences. I was like, well, like I was chatting to somebody yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, we've got a native woodland down near Tinahely, and we don't have a deer fence." I was like, "In Wicklow?" And there we don't have a deer fence, and we've had no deer damage. I was like, "I'm going to go and see that." I almost don't believe it. Now I know in other this is a Wicklow issue we're talking about today, right? So we have to keep reminding people sections, shooting inside deer fences, you know.
We don't want to scaremonger or increase the kind of that's already out there, you know.
Absolutely. This is really important. You are sitting today in Sika Central, like, you know, down there is like where it started, the back of the Parscourt estate. Like, so everywhere here at night it's lit up, Sika in every field, right? So it's an area where if you're then trying to, you know, either, and we're going to look at two things today, we're going to look at native woodland restoration, where there's native woodland that's under pressure and you're trying to fix that, and then new planting, and both have its own challenges, you know. And we can't fence the whole thing, and also it's expensive, and you know, for all the reasons we talked about, I have found the best way to have a deer management plan is have your physical infrastructure. That could be, I don't like the tubes. The tubes just don't work anyway, and it's littering basically. And you know, they break down with UV, and then it's just all these little fragments of things. And the deer, like particularly the young males, get very clever, and they just knock them down and eat them at the top. And you know, honestly, and the posts rot, and then they fall down. They're not really working. Cages work. But cages are a bit expensive, you know, to have one Scots pine inside a cage. We're going to look at a lot of deer management infrastructure today. Cages versus tubes versus exclosures versus big deer fences, and you're going to see all of them here today.
And do you think, Ash, like this is the thing I suppose we're going to touch on as well, is the DMUs now are set up right? Do you think the hunting community can get on top of this from, I suppose, from a public optic perspective, and from there obviously is problems, as you said, in certain areas. Can we as a hunting community come together and get on top of this?
So I think, you know, the way you'd have to decide on that is it's resource allocation, I guess, right? So there's loads of areas of Ireland where, you know, there's no issues. So like, you don't need sections. We saw this by looking at the data. So I would start with the data and go, where are the problems, right? Once you've identified the problem areas, then you narrow in, you speak to those landowners. Some landowners, use the example of, my neighbouring, Spanish vegan. He doesn't want any hunting at all. And I like that. He's really straightforward. He's like, I don't want any culling on my land. Grand. I explained to him, this is the animal welfare impact because, there's so many deer on his land, they're not in great robust health, mainly because he's near the motorway, so a lot of them are getting hit, and we get a lot of call-outs, pain in the arse for us because he's part of the problem, right? I explained that, and then I explained the biodiversity thing. He still says no.
No.
It's just, that's the way.
Yeah.
And I am fine. I said, look, eventually, I think you're going to come around to,
Yeah.
and we have a good chat, and I say, look, I understand, and we'll come up on your land, and we'll through Re-wild Wicklow. We've got 3,000 volunteers, so we'll come and we'll do some maintenance of your fences and your exclosures and all that. But I understand you don't want any culling. But he will call us, for example, if there's an injured animal.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that, Ash?
Yeah.
Injured animals.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah, so the Irish Deer Commission run a national programme to train under, it's Lanter approved now, it's an online course. We got some really good tutors from Scotland. I'll forward you the details of that course. I think you should both do it. It's a great course.
I was just about to say it.
Yeah, and basically we would encourage people to do that. It basically tells you how to safely dispatch an animal. I guess it's focused on the motorway, but in Wicklow, the motorway is only there's just 2 motorways. So a lot of our call outs are
regional
in little places where, something has happened. And, up on I've culled an animal up on the Sugarloaf, and, I've culled a lot of animals on the N11.
Yeah.
And ideally what happens is, the call out comes from whoever hit the animal. So they're there and the animal is in front of the vehicle. And the police car is there with its lights on, and you arrive.
How often does that happen?
You take your shotgun, you ask the person to, go back and sit on my Jeep because I'm, shooting a deer in the face.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, this is how we're going to do it. And I asked the guards to step back and all, because young guards can be a little bit, they've not seen this before, understandably. It's stressful. The animal can be screaming, it's got a broken back, or I've seen animals skinned because they went up through the wheel arches of a bus, So there can be, traumatic. Sometimes the person is very traumatic. They've had trauma because they think they hit a human. Yeah. So they're off their head, screaming. Then
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Then sometimes other people arrive to help. We've had, in one particular case, a piss guy coming out of the pub trying to drive his van over the animal, which is in front of this woman's car, and she's on the phone to me. The guards are on the other line. It's like, I'm there, just tell him to go away. The guards are there. They're going to get him. Yeah. Know. So people, it's a high pressure tension thing, and your first thing on humane dispatch is the public safety element. The animal welfare is a secondary consideration. So it's to parking safely. It's you're stepping out, you've got your high vis, you got your light, as the lad that does the course says, you just have your little checklist, it's good to have it as a written checklist. You go through it, I have a box there with, everything what I need.
It's like a scene safety.
Yes, yeah. So I have got my, light that will fit onto my shotgun. I've got, my deer rifle if the animal is halfway up the mountain. Sometimes you've got to bring 2 firearms. That's, how do you carry 2 firearms?
Yeah.
Right? If you have to leave your vehicle, then you can't leave an open firearm in the thing and then go, because the guard has got a call out because he's gone to do Garda stuff.
Because this could take you hours, Ash, if you're tracking.
It can take, I've had ones multiple days. Yeah, so I didn't find the animal, some of the animals I never found.
Yeah.
And then I would get regular call-outs from hikers and all, we've seen him, Yeah. And the landowner would go, oh, somebody's seen him today, in Glendadowns is the worst. So you'd have animals with their leg hanging off. And they're up in somebody's equestrian centre or on someone's land, and they keep seeing them coming out at night. So the animal has to eat, but it's in a bad way. And, some of those areas, there's no hunting allowed. So you build up a relationship with the landowner and you say, look, ideally you would have, in some of those areas a section 42, but you're refusing that because you don't want hunting. But maybe what you will do is when for humane dispatch things, you'd put in a call and you call the Garda station.
And they have a list of names.
They have a list. As I say, there's 150 people that we've put through the course. Now
we might do that.
We are going to do that, Robert.
Yeah, it's a good one to do. And I think, as we've got a good structure for that course now, and potentially I'd like to add in, some other course. Like one of the areas we're going to be talking about maybe today is urban and peri-urban deer management in Ireland, and there is currently no training for that.
Yeah, it's shooting.
So it's shooting in built-up areas. Yeah, and that is I don't think people realise how many deer are going to need to be shot in places like, Ballantyre and Dundrum and
just on that. I didn't think it was that bad. A friend of mine actually said, I got a bit of red shooting. Right? And I said, all right, yeah, nice animals. Yeah, some really nice animals. Where's that? Lucan.
Yeah.
I said, there couldn't be red deer in Lucan. In the heart of Lucan.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There's big herds in and around Dublin. And because they're sanctuary areas.
Yeah.
And because of the land ownership there.
Yeah.
So if you think about, like, say, the Dublin Mountains, none of those culture blocks are in hams.
Yeah.
So there's no hunting at all. At all.
Yeah.
So, there's some challenging areas there that I think there's going to need to be a plan. Certainly, some of the local authorities like Dún Laoghaire, Rathdown, County Council have a major deer problem.
And
now they know that.
Yes. Yeah. And I suppose from again, going back to from a hunting perspective, if we don't want, and this is one of the things we talked about off air, because we're going to be fleshing this out in more detail over the coming weeks, and this is one of the topics on the list. Is obviously the DMUs are set up. There is a little bit of hysteria in certain areas about it, because we've got some of the messages. They're bringing in hunters from overseas and going to be, do you know what I mean? They're going to be lads going to be moving in. Yeah. That's not the case, as we know. Not the case. So we want to try and put a little bit of, what would you say, a little bit of flesh on the bone in the right way. So and you've obviously first-hand knowledge of this. Is it a case, is it a case that hunters need to be, if you've, myself and Robert, for argument's sake, we're going to talk about people we know. We've a field in Wicklow, right? Or, a large field. Should we be worried about deer management units coming in and taking our ground? That's one of the questions that comes to us regular. No, I wouldn't worry about that. Yeah.
I think what I would be maybe keeping a weather eye to, if you had loads of ground that you were never even going to, and those numbers were building up, and the landowners were calling you and telling you what a section was, and you weren't addressing those issues.
So do your job.
Then I think
that's only fair, though.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's just run through at a top level, right? So I was on the committee, which was the State and Semi-State Lands Committee, and obviously in Wicklow, that's where most deer are.
Yeah.
So the kind of recommendations in the report were that state and semi-state landowners, that's like Bord na Móna, the Army, the local authorities, Quilcha, they complete a deer management plan every 3 to 5 years, which I think is reasonable. We kind of, on our own sections, we may not kind of see it like that, but we're kind of working on a kind of 3-year cycle probably at the moment. Okay. We're going into year 3 on some of those sections. So I think 3 to 5 years to see how things are going, that's a reasonable way of putting it in. So that would include infrastructure, funding, resource allocation of hunters, nuances like, the administration of those sites. Then the recommendation was that there's some sort of oversight of the management plans, so some sort of independent kind of body that would oversee that. Because that doesn't exist at the moment. All that exists is the winner of the tender, which is Farm Relief Services, and they're cracking on with it and setting up the landowner things, and then the hunters on those landowners will coordinate. And I believe you're going to be speaking to Michael Keegan in an episode about that. So I think we don't need to cover we don't need to cover much on that. Then there's basically, I suppose, we're very micro level. We're dealing with like that site up there. This site here, we're going to go and visit 2 or 3 sites today. Those sites have defined boundaries and they're all on section. And we manage that. We don't have a wider framework, as the report said, to ensure landscape level. We cannot do that because we don't have any. We can maybe influence it and feed into it as hunters, but we can't really go.
Yeah, which as hunters we do kind of anyway. So in other words, if you go up to a farmer and you say, "Here, Johnny next door, could you have a word?" He obviously has a bit of a. Can you give us an in there? So we're doing that kind of anyway.
Absolutely, and our most successful sites, we're going to one later today, is like that, where the landowners have kind of combined.
Yeah.
Yes. And then it's basically looking at, and this is not probably, I think, with the best will in the world, no one could say this is happening at the moment, then those entities that have the large deer herds, like Parks and Wildlife, like Quilsha, like Bournamona, the Glenavon Army camps, the local authorities in Dublin, they then become like, they take the lead on developing and implementing these plans because, like hunters are implementers. They really don't want to be doing admin. I do a lot of admin. Like, I probably would have shot twice as many deer if I wasn't administering them and, sections and talking to you guys and, doing presentations.
Drinking beer.
Venison promotion, drinking beer. Yeah. I don't mind the drinking beer bit. Throwing axes. I think that's the basic summary, right? So there's a couple, and again, Michael goes through this in detail, but the program manager has been appointed now. This is the short-term things.
That's Michael.
Yeah, that's Michael, and then there's the 15 DMU managers that are. So Mick is different. Michael is the manager for Wicklow. Met up with him already. He's going to coordinate with the local landowners where sections are needed. He'll talk them through, explain it.
Yeah. Just on that,
he's onto himself, and he really knows his stuff. So I think he'll be able to engage with hunters and landowners.
Just for listeners, we are actually going to get all the points of contact for around the country, so we'll be able to share that out.
Yeah. Then they're starting to set up the deer management. The deer management units at the kind of broader level. So they're going, okay, like, let's say North Wicklow, South Dublin, that could be a general one, but then they might go, okay, well, we actually need a deer management group in Glencullen.
And what's the reason for that? Numbers or TB, or how are they doing it?
I think we'll talk about TB maybe separately, because there's a lot of stuff to that's quite a emotive thing, but yeah, hold that thought for a minute. At the moment, it's a mix of, because they've got limited resources, right? So it'll be looking at, and again, I don't not want to speak for, farm relief services, but my feeling is they've very limited resources. So what they're going to focus in is, the bleeding obvious, right? So it'll be, you can imagine what the sites that Glencree, Glencullen, Roundwood, Glenmalure, it'll be the areas where
somewhere with G in the name.
Yeah. So there'll be a bit of that, and then within each area, once they get a kind of critical mass of landowners that are on board for it, because it's optional. Landowner can say, no, thanks for the information. There's the program guide. We want to do our own thing, or we don't want, like the Spanish vegan, we don't want any culling. Or, and this is the one that I find sometimes the most challenging in our areas when we're trying to do, it's the, what did Mick call it the other day? It's the IHAG, I have a guy. And the problem with that is, that's great, right? That's the sporting rights issue. If you have a guy and that guy is coming, but the problem is if that guy isn't coming. And, I've been on some sections where the neighbouring landowner has a guy, but I've never seen a Jeep parked up or heard a shot in 3 years. And we have somebody there, not every day, but nearly. Yeah. Right. And I've spoken to all the other landowners and they're like, I've never seen a shot from there. Mm-hmm. So there are some people that maybe if they were just honest and went, actually, we do kind of have a guy and no guy, but actually, he lives in Germany. Yeah. Or he's, 87 now, so he's, not getting out so much. Yeah. But, I don't want to put his nose out of joint. And so I don't think there's going to be any sites, I can't imagine there will be, where there's active, competent hunters and a DMU is coming in and going, listen guys, you're doing a great job, but we're just going to call in, a estate agent from Dunleary or a dentist from Leitrim to come and cull those deer. I just don't see how, because it's up to the landowner, right, who shoots on the land. So the landowner always retains that right. That. Now, could there be situations maybe where that landowner refuses a section and they say, I'm just allowing in-season hunting under Section 29. I could imagine that might happen. Would that be challenging for the people on that site if it was a high deer density area? Yes, it would be. in my experience.
Yeah.
Again, in other counties, that's probably fine.
Yeah.
Because the deer density in loads of counties is not a problem. Like, look at the data. It says it's not statistically a problem. But in Wicklow, some areas to try and manage them outside section, you'd be like, you're just wasting your time. So one of the things that that has been done, and you're aware of this, and you probably talked to about this a lot, was the extension of the male season a good or a bad thing?
Yes.
And
what's your thoughts?
My thoughts is somewhat of like, for us it doesn't matter, right? Because we're shooting on section. If the deer's inside the deer fence, we're shooting the deer, right? So if it's a humane dispatch program, it doesn't matter what deer is injured. If it's if we're like, sometimes we start a section before the native woodland scheme even starts, so we're just reducing numbers overall.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are incompatible. Like, we just look at the site and we go, like, you just couldn't even start here, because the numbers are too big on the land before.
Yes.
So in those things, it doesn't really matter. But I think where it's been a bit of a known goal is with, the lads that are, only shooting one or two animals. They then go out at the earlier time in the season. They fill their freezer with that one, large fallow buck or whatever. And then they don't go out again. Whereas if you'd left them till the female season, they at least might have taken a few hinds and calves.
Yeah.
Now, would they have, the guys that want to shoot just males, they're only going to do that, right?
Anyway, yeah.
But I think we have made it a little bit, and also if you're trying to manage a site at scale, having people shooting there and in the surrounding area early on, because they're just targeting males and they can't shoot the females, because shooting males makes little or no difference from a deer management perspective. That's just the way sex works, right? One male will cover 50 females.
Yeah.
So you can't control a deer population by shooting stags. You just can't. So I think I've got no way of saying it was a bad decision, but it didn't feel and it came from nowhere. It wasn't one of the recommendations of the committees. I think they just did it as a, probably because the IFA wanted it or whatever. It was just, we want to be seen to be doing something. I don't feel it was a great
science-based.
I didn't feel like, any hunters I've spoken to about went, that was a dumbass move. It was a known goal, is the way they say it.
But it's 2 years now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's the population drop by, or do you have analytics?
No, we don't know, you see. We don't know. All you can tell is what the cull returns are. So we can go through that in a minute. But,
and they're self...
But see, the cull returns, if you've got a growth rate of like 30%, the cull return may, you have to know what you're starting with. So the numbers are like a little bit misleading. But anyway, they wanted to revise the dates to align with Northern Ireland. I kind of understand why maybe that was done, but it was maybe not a great idea. And there is still talk about setting up like a deer management agency that will collect a lot of the data. One thing that, and I've kind of highlighted this with Tommy and other people have, I know Damien Hannigan and other, people involved in deer conservation and deer management have noted this. It is a bit weird that this is done by the Department of Ag when Parks and Wildlife are the government agency that are over deer.
Yeah.
So ideally, this would be Parks and Wildlife. Now, they do have some appointees on the overall, but from a governance perspective, I would have preferred to see
led
this
rather than fed in with.
Yes, I would have preferred to see this as a Parks and Wildlife. I think they're more appropriate. They're doing they've got, people on the ground. They're not like influenced by, farm lobby groups and so on. So
it goes back, I think it probably looks that it was fed by the farming ends.
And then and it certainly comes into play once you're shooting larger amounts of animals. What is the plan for the venison market? So not again to talk across what Michael will say, but an element of the plan will be to promote venison. We've had 2 events now in Wicklow, and they were both really successful. The other one was in Blessington.
Salivating here thinking about.
We got in food journalists and some venison chefs and some of our best butchers and people that are involved in deer management projects and in conservation projects, and got everyone in the same room talking about these issues. And I think that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
If you're doing that in future,
Yeah.
can you let us
Yeah,
know?
of course.
And we'll turn up
Yeah.
and spread the word.
The next one I think is going to be in October. I think Wicklow naturally is doing that next one. So and having people talking about venison. Etik is the new PRO for the Irish Deer Commission, and I'm sure he would be very happy to talk. Like, he's a butcher, Hicks Butchers, and he's a deer hunter. He has been helping us out with some of these sections.
Brilliant.
He would be a good person to talk to.
That's brilliant, because like that's it's not just about, it's not singular. There has to be, like, it's all very well, as you say, we have to reduce numbers. Then the part of that is what do we do with it, as we were saying. Then we have to promote it, because if people aren't eating it, you're not going to get
exactly.
It's all cumulative.
Right, now, we'll just whistle through some of the more boring stuff. But there has been a change to statutory instruments that affect deer, and I'll give you this and you can put it on the thing. But basically, this statutory instrument 347 of 2024, which basically kind of quietly reclassified fallow and sika as an invasive species. There's supposed to be like a scientific designation process, and this kind of, to my mind, kind of somehow sidestep this. Like, fallow have been here since the Normans, right? Like, so and honestly, like, I'm not saying there aren't parts of Gort and Scariff, like Gort in particular, there were like fallow deer in the town, like, so there are areas that need management, but I'm not sure from a practical perspective what the advantage of designating fallow as invasives was.
See, this is my concern. I knew there was a lot of fluff and buster, right? But this was my concern all along, in that, was this the ultimate? Because there was a lot of talk around Europe about sika being invasive and so on, and fallow. And were we just going to jump on that train to say, right, these are like classified as a fucking pest?
And now they should be shot like foxes.
Do you know what I mean? And that was always my
no season.
Exactly. And we kind of we're touching on the edges of that by extending seasons. Obviously, with the sections.
But I think I remember having at that time when they were talking about some of these issues, and they were talking about, like, the idea of having a bounty and all that, and chatting to one of the senior IFA reps, about this, because even though we might sometimes be on different side of the fence in deer management, we we obviously talking, friends really, and she was saying, well, we didn't really like the idea of the bounty. It's like not really a good thing to be promoting, and it also, we don't want to have like, these like orphan calves walking up the M50, and I'm like, exactly. So if we went too far the other way, I think, what would happen is there'd be a public backlash against hunting and against culling and against. So I think it's a line to walk, and I don't know where that line should be. I can tell you where it is with my sites, because I know the what a good balance is. But in general, I don't know where that should be. I think the female season for me is as long as it could be. I think maybe the male season is maybe too long. I would probably start it later.
Absolutely. We were out the other night, and obviously we took a cold stag. We were out with our friend Yanis. And that's, I think, the lead into the next question is this obviously doesn't encompass anything to do with proper, like, as Rob was touching on there, genetics of deer, and like, we all would love to see lovely healthy stags running around the place, and fine red deer, fine sika, fine fallow. But I think the problem with when you have government led or even farmer led, because they're not like us on the ground, that ironically we shoot deer, but we love the deer at the same time.
And that's a balance. Like the Irish Deer Commission is that mix where deer conservation and deer hunting. That's the thing. So I don't see that that's a weird thing, but for some people, they're like, wait a minute, like, how can you have, like, and I'm like, well, for all the reasons that we're talking about. So let's skip on maybe to what the medium term kind of, things that the program covers. So the setting up of the independent deer management agency, I think that's probably a good idea. Someone's got to keep the data. The data is coming in from all different, things from like Transport Infrastructure Ireland, from the Gardaí. We get a lot of the data. We're not like really, we're grand, like we're good at it, I think. And we've been doing it. but ideally that, you know, if you ask me, oh, what was the cull, you know, last month in Wicklow National Park, or what was the, you know, how many sections were issued by Quilsha? I don't know.
No, yeah.
Well, you know, I can guess, but
Yeah.
you know, I think there needs to be some
Body-
agency that
yeah,
goes,
body,
this is, and we know how things are going, because like this is public money, right? So we can't be spending public money without having any
Yeah.
kind of measurement. You know, when I look back, there was an initial Wicklow deer management project, and you know, if you're cynical about that, that was just basically administering deer that were going to be shot anyway.
Yeah.
Like it just chose a few areas where there were deer. In fairness, they were deer hotspots, and they
Yes.
got good hunters
Yeah,
in. And I know some of the hunters that were on that, but they would have shot. They didn't shoot any more deer.
Yeah, and also without that, right, talk about the other side of the line. When we do get to a situation, hopefully do, where deer are managed correctly,
Yeah.
we need to know when to stop. You know, so,
Yeah,
do you know what I'm saying? So we know this is the line. We can go to here, but we don't want to go to the other side.
But I think
the
in some
policy
of the
that's following
counties,
that.
in some of the countries, they won't start because there isn't. It won't merit a DMU.
Yeah.
So they won't, like, I don't believe, unless I'm misreading the whole thing, and this is again a question for Michael or for Seppi
Yeah.
Hona or somebody that's involved with the policy side. Seppi would be a good person to speak to as well. He's on the overall committee. I mean,
Okay.
he was head of the state and semi-state management committee for deer. They, like, you know, it's even to just resource. The Glen Cree Valley is going to be a huge body of work, right?
Yeah.
So, like, they're not going to be going to an area where there's
Yeah.
like 10 deer and administering, like, that's just
It's
not.
just not- yeah,
that's
I-
not. Now, that's not to say over time, right? Particularly with, look up the top, Clearfell.
Yeah.
Clearfell is the biggest, you know, habitat. So you take out the habitat. Where did the deer go that were there? You know, that could have had 150 seek in it.
Yeah.
Where are they now? I'll tell you where they are. We're going down and see them in a minute.
Yeah.
Right? So they move, right? The hinds, not so much. You know,
Yeah.
if they're unpressured, maybe a kilometre.
Yeah.
The stags maybe more like 15, 20 kilometres.
Yeah, that'd be-
Yeah, you'll get a lot of the you know, they're starting to move now, you know, you'll see more and more. Like if you see an animal out on their own at the moment, I can almost pretty much tell, even if they're just like a button, they're a male, you know.
Yeah.
They're, you know, the females are together. Yeah. So yeah, there might be another review of the open seasons order. You know, I don't think you could extend the female season ethically anymore.
Yeah.
I think you would find it hard to argue that. It's as long as I think it could possibly be. And I don't think they will roll back on the decision on the male season unless and there's no way of telling. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and also like in if you're on selection, then you're shooting males all year round anyway. So like there's consideration with that. Some of the things about certification and hunters, that is a weird one. Like some of the more experienced hunters, they've been hunting for 20, 30 years. They were before any certifications and all that, so getting them to go back to school might be a bit of
An issue.
a challenge, and we obviously need to retain some of
at
that
the moment,
expertise.
they're out because you need a H cap. Is that right?
Just to shoot on Quilsha.
No, for these deer management units.
No, the deer management units is up to the landowners to choose their hunter.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
you don't
sorry.
have.
Yeah,
You need HCAP if you're using thermals at night. There's a few
Yes,
edge
yeah.
cases, but overall,
Sorry, yeah.
yeah. And there is no, as we spoke about, there is no next step from HCAP. So HCAP is quite rudimentary, right? It tells you which end of
Entry
the
level,
rifle
yeah,
is
yeah.
which, and which end of the deer is which, and you shoot a plate at, But really, there's no follow up. There's no mentoring. There's no, for a young lad starting out, or we're somebody that's like, moved here from Poland or Ukraine and knows no landowners, or you're a woman, like I've been mentoring a couple of female hunters, and you rock up on the farm and they're like, unless you live in the parish, like, there is still,
And
there's.
you'd have to be commended on that, because I know that you do a lot with mentoring.
I do a lot of mentoring, yeah. I'd always have at any one stage maybe 6 people that I'm actively,
Mentoring.
very
working
few
them
people
through.
that do that.
Yeah. I just think it's, like,
It's
I'm the chair of the
networking.
Irish Deer Commission. Well, I don't do it. Who's going to do it, right? So, and now I've got other people are doing it as well. So, like, and hopefully you guys will just take on. You need to take on one person for the
Exactly,
year,
exactly.
And
It'd be
and
nice
you
to
have to
have-
do it with sections, because nowhere is going to want somebody that they don't know coming on and shooting at night. along the M11 or on
But
the
wouldn't it
M50
be
or
nice
whatever.
to have, after the HCAT,
Yeah.
a mentoring program, an official?
Yeah. Other countries have that.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. And then you drop in things like you do your humane so it's
Yeah.
almost like you've got your Lantra tick box
Yes.
of your
Yeah,
so your
yeah.
continuous professional development, they call it in other
Absolutely.
sectors. So you might have might do your course on your night shooting. You might do your course on, one of the things that I'm piss poor on is distance shooting. I'm just not. I shoot with guys that are on the long distance team and all.
Yeah.
And if they can shoot a deer that's over there,
Similar to him,
not
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
I prefer to shoot everything I shoot is under 50 meters. Everything. So
I'm in your camp. He can push it out. I agree in your
We
camp.
shouldn't get him that close.
Maybe 70. Yeah. So I'm kind of just quiet and take my time, and I'm in no rush. So, I think there's a number of areas. I think urban deer management is going to be something that there's a whole
coming on the line.
a whole suite of courses being developed in North America now and in Australia. That's why we had, and maybe we could talk about that separately.
Yeah.
The boss of deer management from Melbourne, and she was explaining, like, we spend a whole day going to the same sites we're going to today and looking at how we do it, and we're just at the early stages. Like, they have, like, if they were doing a site like this, they'd have two thermal drones, one doing the perimeter and one targeting. They're shooting samba, and sambas are in 1s and 2s and all, and they wouldn't be able to get any productivity if they didn't have the drones behind them.
Yeah.
And then an area that's kind of close to my heart, and I actually had a couple of calls on this today, is forestry design, and how at the moment, if you look up at that hill, how the heck are you going to manage deer in that? Like, how are you going to do it?
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you where the deer are. They're in that scrub area there in front of the car park. They're up in those corners up there. If we stick on the thermal, you'll see them. They're in those little clearings. How are you going to get in there? How are you going to get the animal out? Like, this type of planting is not designed. This type of forestry design, there's no rides, there's no glades, there's nowhere to put your high seats. Even if there was, who's funding the high seats?
Yeah.
The hunters are expected to pay for them. We got, I think, the first grant ever for high seats. Like, we got 20 grand. Like, how far is 20 grand going to go in Wicklow on high seats? For proper galvanised seats.
Yeah.
And we're putting them in public places, so they can't be just like a few pallets stuck together, because kids are going to climb up on them.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be some acknowledgement and funding of the infrastructure that hunters need. It's not good enough to just put up fences.
Yeah.
And in fact, arguably, when those trees inside those fences grow, I won't be able to cut in there.
Yes. Yeah. Because you're actually.
Yeah.
You're blocking yourself out then.
And there's only one gate, so the wind's the wrong way. I can't go there anyway. So I think there's a bit of work there.
If I was to give you, if I was to give you a magic wand right here now, what would you like to see in 5 years or 10 years time from a deer management perspective?
I think it'll be more, let's say,
I'm talking from your perspective now, not from
my perspective. From my perspective, just as on my experience on the sites that I'm managing, I would like to see a way of allocating the limited, because hunters are a limited resource, right?
Yeah.
So allocating those hunters to the most appropriate places. So that could be the N11 corridor. Under the transmission and distribution wire network. There's no way of doing that at the moment, because Airgrid don't own the access underneath. But obviously those are the main deer corridors in this area.
Yes.
So the N11, that's challenging because you need the infrastructure, so somebody has to fund that. Transport infrastructure currently have declined. I think they'll come around, but at the moment they just put up the signs, and deer can't read signs. So we need infrastructure to be safe.
Yeah.
We need funding to improve the venison supply chain, and that is probably a mix of chillers,
portable chillers, or some
larders.
sort of.
Yeah, I'm not sure. In somewhere, I talked to somebody about this, about the portable ones, and one of the proposals, I think it was McCraven was talking about portable ones. The portable ones, like here, the deer management areas are fairly set.
Yeah.
So, like, and the volumes that are going to be gone through these is going to be substantial.
Yeah.
So having chillers that move around, I'm not sure you need that. I prefer to just
statutory, but in certain in
have
hotspot
one.
areas,
Like, so you go to a landowner in the area and you go, look, you're a kind of anchor tenant in this area. You've got a secure farm. Like, I shoot on the odd farm, and all big farms now have like a key code or a phone to get in.
Yeah.
So somewhere like that, so you're basically checking in to the chiller. Because it might be fine now, but I know in the past some of those chillers where you had the drop-off places, like the lads were leaving grollock outside, and you can imagine that any old things that they didn't want were getting thrown in there, and it was just a mess. So there has to be like a bit of administration, a bit of curation and oversight. There also has to be, because increasingly, the sites that we're going to today, they're public access sites. You can't be leaving heads. You can't be leaving grollock. Really, we do leave with grollock. Grollock's usually gone the next day. But the
heads are
and some of the agricultural sites, they don't want any left, because they're like, okay, even if you didn't see any visible TB signs, we still don't want you leaving. So I just have the blue canoe barrels, and in those sites I just take the grollock away in the blue canoe barrels. But then you've got to dispose of that yourself, and so I think technically TB carcasses are category 5 waste. So ideally, in the same area that you've got the chillers and the thing, you'd have a sealed skip that Larry Earls, the Fallen Animal Service, would collect every couple of weeks, depending on the temperature and all, and how full it is, and go, okay, and that would be then somewhere that I think it might work something like that, and that infrastructure would fit in with the it might be shared infrastructure across a few DMUs. And the ideal situation is then if the DMUs are let's take an area like Roundwood or Glenmiller or whatever, the DMUs then maybe are coordinating. The day is fed back, and to your mind is like, when do you stop? You kind of know when you know, right? And I think maybe that's that data-driven approach, that it might take us 4 to 5 years to have enough experience.
See, this is the thing, right? So we've money on one side, right? With funding. We also have a line that, from a hunting perspective, we know we don't want to cross.
There's not much funding. Believe me, like even to get 20 grand for high seats was challenging.
No, I'm not talking from Europe, but in terms of, for argument's sake, the deer management unit was set up, right? So there's money going at that, and there will be more money thrown at this over the next in terms of deer management. But we also want to, if there's no data, because I know with the NARGC we're banging on about, not we, but the NARGC are banging on about, we need to get bag returns, because we need to be able to fight the antis. We need to be able to give real data. So if we don't correlate, and we don't give proper returns, and we don't correlate that in a responsible and uniform manner, because we spoke there, there's a couple of different deer organisations, but we need them all feeding into the one. Collaboratively.
Well, the hunters, like in the Hams app, they do their returns within hams. Now, if you actually look at, and we can run through a couple of examples if you want from the hams data. First of all, do you guys know the way the Quilshire hams system works? And do you know the way the different BAUs, the business units of Quilshire, and the way it's kind of split up nationally and how they report?
We actually only learned about it there the other day because Yanis put us onto it. So
So I thought I had the breakdown there. I left it on the printer, but it's basically split into there we go. So each area of the country is a BAU. So there's 6 BAUs in Quilshire. So there's the Northwest, the Midwest, the Midlands, Southeast Leinster, Central Munster, and Southwest Munster, and they have a BAU unit. And then the Hams app is connected to this back-end database that then collects the data and provides it back to Quilshire, so they know how the numbers are going. So if you look at, say, what's this one for? That's fallow. Sorry, it should say at the top. So that's the fallow cull in Quilshire, 211. The red deer cull in Quilshire, 47, and the Sika cull, 400. But do you believe that's the amount of deer that are shot in Quilshire? I don't.
This is what I was trying to say to you earlier. It's all self-declared. For whatever reason.
Now, as far I don't shoot in Quilshire, probably never will. But and a lot of Wicklow lads don't, because you have to pay. So it's a it works for a lot of people, and I know, for example, in some of the BAUs, there's loads of really well managed Quilshire woods, but there are other ones that you go, I can't believe there's anyone shooting in there. The deer are like almost hand-fed. So But this type of data, right? So this is broken down. I'm just showing the lads, by fallow, by red deer, and by sika, calves, hinds, and stag. Even, in some of them, they even put it by age. I think, starting to build up this data. And again, if you do a podcast with Adam Smith, I think he would talk to a lot of this data, because through Re-wild Wicklow, we do the snapshot program. So we're actually putting out 50 or 60 cameras in these areas.
Very good.
And they'll stay out for 10 weeks. And then we collect all the data, and it gets read by a kind of semi-created AI computer to say, is that a badger's arse or a front of a sika, and that all feeds in. But at the moment, all that data is siloed. So Parks and Wildlife Cull, that's it over there. Culture Cull is here.
Yes, yeah.
The Farm Relief Service is starting a new app, and they're going to put their data in that. No one is.
If you any see it, they have their app, and you can you can feed that as well.
Yeah. We use HuntStand.
Yeah,
actually, because it's free. I don't know if you've used HuntStand, the American app. I'll show you how it works. But that's, if you're just managing your own little deer management unit, it's a really good way, particularly if there's more than one person on it and you want to say, I say to the guys, look, I don't actually care if you shot anything last night. What I want to know is, what did you see? What did you what numbers are you seeing? So then we can kind of do that resource allocation.
Yes, exactly.
And then if one of the guys goes, I shot, 3 prickets and I saw 20 down in the next field. I didn't even get down there. Then you can bet one of the guys in the WhatsApp group will go the next day, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's kind of gamification, they call it, or whatever. If the lads are reporting back and they're going and they're all on the same page and we're all there to,
working together.
Particularly, if you're shooting inside deer fences, where it becomes like almost like a, escape room or cat and mouse game. You're like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because we do get very, the first 10 are easy, but like then it gets,
So we could probably do a separate podcast with you again on all this.
Just on data. I think it would be worth thinking about getting. Maybe it's not, because I can give you maybe the implementation side.
Yeah.
But what I can't do is, I don't know this data means that, and the relative weights of the data. I can only do rudimentary maths, right? But there are people that have PhDs in this. Like one of the guys that shoots on, up where we're going next, like he's a statistician in his day job. So if we want to run data, I just go, Jack, can you just take a look at that, right? So being able to have data, and now, like, there's no reason not to have data. We've got thermal drones, we've got, like, in the past, and this is probably, this is like this. It's not because of, it was just what the technology was there at the time. The way it was done before, certainly in Quilshit, they used to have, Tim Burkett would go around and count deer shit. It was pellet counts. And really, I think it was, my feeling is that really underestimated the population. Same way as if you did a deer survey of there now, right? And you did a deer survey of there in 3 hours' time.
Yeah.
What difference you would see, right? Huge difference. So, like, when you do your thermal drone survey, it makes a massive difference, because thermal drones are not magic. They can't see into deep sika blocks. So I think when you do it, but what they can do is give a relative weight.
Yes.
And this is one of the things about deer management, is like, you're trying to go, okay, we've got so many hunters and we got to allocate them. We've got so many counties, and, everyone, like, all the IFA lads are going, there's deer, stacked 3 deep in our parish. And you're going, actually, statistically, there ain't, right? But there was no way politically it was going to happen that they were just going to allocate the deer management units in Wicklow.
Yeah.
If I was doing it, probably that's what I would have done. I would have went, let's just get proof of concept for all this data gathering. Let's do it all properly. We've only got a limited budget. Let's focus on one area where there's a known problem of, forestry impact, farm impact, and we're going to probably talk about this all day, motorway collisions. Let's focus on, where is really the issue. Let's not spread ourselves too thin. But that was not going to happen, because
from an optics and
every local politician, the Mayo guys would have went, we want resources here, like, the minister is from Kerry. Like, he's not going to go, oh, we don't want a DMU in Kerry.
Kerry, yeah.
And arguably Kerry, like we've sorted
Yes,
out,
yeah.
arguably Kerry after
Yeah. Should require one.
would have a DMU, and I am sure I'm going down to Kerry next month to go and visit some sites. But again, that's a bit artificial, because when I go, I'm going to be brought to the ones that are like the
worst.
the you know, where the deer are stacked 3 deep, and or the road traffic collision areas, because I'll be down with Transport Infrastructure Ireland or whatever. So it can be, you know, I just prefer to be more, you know, I work in data on my day job. I would prefer to be like just seeing the overall data, and then the resource allocation is based on where the problem is. And we go, right, lads, we are all grown up here. You know, we don't want, for example, you know, to get to an area where the deer density is problematic. We don't want deer with their legs hanging off in Glenda Downs. We don't want deers getting on the, you know, Dart and Carrick mines. And all of those things are happening at the moment because there wasn't the joined up thinking. So, that's not the hunter's fault. And in fact, it's not even the landowner's fault, because they it's a bit like the frog in the boiling water. It just kind of happened. But now I think, you know, if we start with a data-driven approach and we go, right, let's, you know, set up some pilot projects, you might call them, of these areas. And honestly, like, you know, we've kind of been doing it anyway. Like, ours have been running about 3 years, but they're just small scale. They're focused on a particular site. So shall we? So we walk down? Yeah, go on.
One last question, right? Yeah. Just for the listeners, the average shooter.
Yeah.
In your opinion, only your opinion.
Yeah.
DMUs, good idea, bad idea, or wait and see?
No,
I'm hitting you with a hard one.
Yeah. I think I can't think of another way of allocating. So at the moment, I just don't know. Like, I can't think of another way of doing it. Like, I think it's just an abbreviation and a way of, like, is this a DMU that we're in today?
I think it's a larger scale of what you're doing. Yeah.
Maybe. But then if you get too big, you're getting into kind of landscape level, and how do you do that? So I think the advantage of keeping it local with the local hunters and the local landowners, I absolutely think that's the best way to do it.
Absolutely.
So maybe, to answer your question more directly, maybe it's not the DMU thing. The DMU is just like a policy statement. Yeah. Underneath it, it's the local deer management groups where the hunters are working with the landowners. So they're working with their local Quilsha block, they're working with their national park rangers, they're working with the farmers, they're working with the private forestry blocks to come up with a structured approach to that. So not just moving the deer around, which I think in the past that's
what happened. I think
so maybe that's the DMU thing is just like a policy statement. When you break it down to a local level, like, you know, where I live, it'll be in conjunction with the landowners. The landowners generally have you know, a good relationship with the hunters. Some of them don't really understand about sections, and they might not be in section. That can be explained. Some of them maybe are anti-hunting, and that's fine. That's their decision. No land, there's not imposed, right? There's no rule, and we can talk about other countries where it is more imposed. But at the moment, this is all voluntary. You know, hunters are volunteering; they're not getting paid to do this.
No,
the landowners are not getting grants or premiums to, you know, manage deer. So
absolutely. Look, I think we could definitely, and we will. This is only the first of
we've got a couple of stops, but listen, let's get out and have a walk. Have a walk around.
Thank you very, very much, Ash. We're going to just pause this here now. So thank you very much for that chat. We're going to tip on out here now with Ash and have a little look at some of his spots, and we will no doubt be following up.
Yeah,
all right? Thank you very much, my man.
Let's do that.